Turkey's in the house. Every day is Thanksgiving. Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports, man. Like, subscribe, become a member to the channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Look, Turki Alalshikh, no matter what you may think about him, me as a boxing fan, I ain't gonna lie. I like what I'm seeing. I ain't gonna lie. And I like the fact that these fighters are getting paid hand over fist. So, the fact that I still hear people out here complaining about Turki Alalshikh, my thing is this. If we're talking boxing with the facts, okay? Now, you know I'm all about talking about the secret society. I'm all about saying something seems odd. I'm all about timetabling things back to when Kinahan and was bringing fights over to Saudi. Pro Bellum, the Super 6 tournament, any boxing matches that were taking place in Saudi years ago before Turki Alalshikh really got involved. You know, I'm all about those conversations and just saying, hey, it's just a bit of speculation, a bit of prediction, conversation, and just overall just healthy dialogue. But outside of speculating, when we deal with the facts, the fact is, this guy, Turki Alalshikh, as the head of the General Entertainment Authority, right? He has done something amazing. Now, for years, we've heard fighters talk about, they want a certain amount of money, promoters saying, hey, we can't pay fighters what they want because if they can't put butts in the seats, then, we can't give them the guarantees they want. So now everything goes to a pay-per-view model, and there's so much illegal streaming of fights that the money's just not there. So down comes Turki Alalshikh, and all of a sudden the money's there. And lo and behold, we start getting the fights that we want. Hell, we're getting some fights we didn't even ask for. Turki Alalshikh is just doing amazing stuff. Now, there's a lot of his business that gets conducted out there, man, in the UK. Now, everybody has an opinion on that. But what I'll say is, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, those two guys really seem to be kind of leading boxing. At a time it was Al Heyman, and Oscar De La Hoya is kind of hanging on and picking up scraps where he can. But the bottom line is, Turki Alalshikh he's smart, and he knows how to move, and he knows where he'll have great working relationships and where he may run into a little bit of turbulence. But for what he's doing, especially when you look at all the fight cards they've had in Saudi, you look at the fight card they put on for Terence, Crawford, and Cali. You look at what we just saw out there with Eubank Jr. and Ben. You look at what's going on in Times Square with Ryan, Rowley, Tio, Devin, Ramirez, Barbosa. That is crazy. And the fact that they were trying to have a fight out there in Alcatraz. There's nothing Turki Alalshikh can't accomplish in the sport of boxing because he's backed by this enormous checkbook. Okay? Now, I think people keep forgetting that Turki Alalshikh is the head of the General Entertainment Authority for Saudi Arabia. He's the shot caller. He's the big dog. Okay? And he's taking over boxing. And you know what's really interesting? Man, Turki Alalshikh, wherever there's a struggle in boxing or a bit of a pitfall in boxing or some kind of turbulence in boxing, Turki Alalshikh can come out here and resolve those issues. In addition to that, I don't know who's advising him, but the way he's playing matchmaker for a lot of these fights is beyond comprehension because I know he has a team. I know he's talking to the promoters as well, and he talks to the fighters. But that's why I like what Terence Crawford said. He said, when it comes to Turki Alalshikh, he's succeeding because he treats boxers like friends and partners. He doesn't treat them like enemies or like they're inferior. He's not there to exploit him and just say, hey, look, we're the money machines. You're just a fighter, the dumb fighter. He's not like that. He's really trying to make the best fights in boxing, but also understand the fighters that wants their needs and make sure that the fighters get paid the kind of money that, Turki Alalshikh feels they've earned. And then he puts a little bit more on top of that. But you know what I didn't know? I didn't know that Turki Alalshikh, with his endeavors to grow the sport of boxing and to really establish his footprint, I didn't know he purchased a substantial slice of boxing media when he went and bought the Century Old Ring magazine in November 2024. Now, I knew that, but I didn't know he purchased the X account of another journalist, which had more than 300,000 followers. I didn't know that. Okay? And then he rebranded that as the official Ring magazine account. I did notice that the Ring magazine Twitter account had a bunch of damn subscribers, and I was thinking, how the hell did he do that so fast? Even when I look at a Ring magazine account on YouTube, I was like, how is this happening so fast? Even I was wondering. You look at Pro Box and all those other channels, I'm like, they haven't even, I don't even think, maybe they cracked 100,000 now. But even I noticed, like, that's odd, but now it makes sense, It's because of the money. And if Turki Alalshikh's trying to fix what many people feel the greatest sport in the world, he's going to put his money up and make, like Floyd Mayweather would say, smart business decisions. But there are people out here who want to get to know a little bit more about this Turki Alalshikh and how he's kind of the man behind the heartbeat of boxing. And when they do this, they start digging, right? They start coming across stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with boxing. They start talking, trying to, it's like Paulie Malinaggi. He's been pretty vocal. Now, I talk about everything in boxing. I've also spoken about the secrets. I've been saying the secret society talk for years. It's funny to hear people talk about this shit now. I say it jokingly, but all I'm talking about is just those key decision makers behind the scenes and how some things happen and you're watching, you can't make sense of it is because there are decisions being made behind the scenes. But I don't go to try to find out if somebody is going to punish someone for sending tweets about them and stuff like that and putting people in jail or anything like that. That shit doesn't have anything to do with boxing. Is it giving us a little bit of insight into a person's character? But we're just here to talk about boxing, all right? So there's a lot of things that people want to come out there and they want to talk about it that may involve Saudi, and there may be some things that may be linked to Turki Alalshikh's name. But look, I'll just say this: I don't know, but I do know Turki Alalshikh has been asked about certain things. He just doesn't respond. You know what I'm saying? He's a smart guy. But there's a bunch of things that have been mentioned about him that have nothing to do with boxing. And again, it's just about things happening to people who speak out against him and then certain people, getting the bing bings put on them out there. But the bottom line is, for what Turki Alalshikh's doing, whatever happens out there in Saudi, it's not boxing related. I really don't care. I think it's interesting. I'll read it, but I'm not necessarily going to come out here report on that. Some people say, well, aren't you a journalist? No, motherfucker. I'm a retired guy who likes to talk boxing. I'm not a journalist. You want to be a journalist, you go to school and major in journalism, and you go out there and do the research on this guy. I'm not doing that. I like what I see, what he's doing for boxing. I think it's great. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I do think it's cool that fighters are getting paid huge money. You know what I mean? And I like the fact that he's just starting to work with these guys who I think they own a comic book company. I just know that when they start putting out comic books, and you got like all these different boxers as characters in these comic books, I'm going to subscribe. I'm going to buy every single comic book that's published, every single one, and I'm going to save them all. I'm going to read them and just save them all, because I just think 20 years down the road, I have 4 sons. You just never know what the value of those things can be. I was in a card shop the other day. One of my sons likes Pokemon cards, and they had like cards with Michael Jordan and Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard, and the price they were charging for those cards, I was like, are you kidding me, man? Some of those cards are very, very expensive, man. I'm like, no way. So the thing with this magazine, it could be if you keep it in really great condition, it could be worth some money down the road. I just think what Turki Alalshikh's doing, man. For me with boxing, I just think it's outstanding. As far as anything going on in Saudi, where people are talking about there's a whole bunch of Turki Alalshikh's victims for things he's done, that shit has nothing to do with boxing. I look at what was happening over here. The only victims boxing related are those who are choosing not to work with him, and that's their right. That's their right. But he's kind of putting out the silver spoon to people, saying, "Hey, come and work with us. We're trying to make boxing better." And again, I don't see why a person, wouldn't work with him on a 2 or 3 fight deal just to make some money and keep, making the best fights and improving the state of boxing. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Turki Alalshikh. People need to keep things boxing related. And if y'all want to know anything more about Turki Alalshikh and the different things that have been reported about him, just go on out there and type in his name and Google it and just start reading articles. I mean, there's so much stuff that I've read that I can share with you guys, but it's not boxing related. It's just like, makes you wonder. That's all I'll say. Just makes you wonder what kind of individual, aside from boxing, we're really dealing with. But the bottom line, he's doing some historic stuff when it comes to boxing, and I'm glad that I'm around to actually see and enjoy it, because who knows, man, if Turki Alalshikh goes away, who knows what happens to the money. If there's no money in boxing, I'm not saying boxing's going to disappear, but we'll go back to the same thing, to where the best aren't necessarily going to fight the best. And if they do, I just think it'd be hard to get them in the ring with the amount of money that these promoters are going to be wanting to give them. I can't see fighters wanting to go back to a $500,000 payday or $1 million payday when you're messing around with Turki Alalshikh and getting, 5, 6, 7, 10 million. I just don't see that. Or saying, hey, we'll give you a $500,000 guarantee and, 60% of the pay-per-view sales, knowing pay-per-view is just, I just think pay-per-view just, each day that passes, pay-per-view comes a step closer to just, losing its pulse. So that's my opinion. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. Turki Alalshikh is out here getting busy when it comes to boxing. I don't know how he's going to top this Times Square boxing event. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with Canelo and Crawford when they fight. I just don't know how he's going to keep topping these things. But just when I thought he couldn't, as far as the fight card, he still manages to top the fight card. Now he's topping locations. It's like, damn, what can't Turki Alalshikh do when it comes to boxing? And remember, I'm just talking boxing. I'm not getting into all the conspiracy theories and all that shit that I enjoy talking about. I'm just looking at what he's doing right now, and I'm telling you, like, for this weekend, it's crazy. Look at the fights coming up this weekend. It's absolutely crazy. And you got to thank Turki Alalshikh for that. Anyway, when Turkey's in the house, every day is Thanksgiving. Y'all keep cool. I'm in the breeze.